Question number 32 on the reading portion of College Board's Test 3. It can be inferred. So inferred means that based on all the evidence given, the author doesn't directly say it, but what is the next logical step? What can we infer? What can we pick up on based on what he's saying? What's the next thing that he didn't really say, but we can logically conclude? It can be inferred that the author of passage 1 believes that running a household and raising children. So the author, I guess it's true, it's Talleyrand et al., so I guess it's not just Talleyrand, but the author is Talleyrand of passage 1 believes that running a household and raising children. What does he believe about this? Realize this is a quote question. 33 are the quotes that support 32. But let's try to see if we remember what he thinks that running a household and raising children. Because if I remember, line 25, he says, it is not apparent that their delicate constitutions, their peaceful inclinations, talking about women, and the many duties of motherhood set them apart from strenuous habits and onerous duties and summon them to gentle occupation and the cares of the home. So he might be talking about women, running a household and raising children are what women should do or what they ought to do, or this is like their purview. This is how destiny has guided them, and this is what suits their constitutions. It can be inferred that the authors of passage 1, Talleyrand, believe that running a household and raising children, and remember, they don't look that favorably on women in general, are rewarding for men as well as for women. Does the author of passage 1 ever say that running a household and raising children is just as rewarding for men as it is for women? That might be true. However, does Talleyrand ever say that? He never once says anything about men doing anything with the house or raising children. No. What about B? Running a household and raising children yield less value for society than do the roles performed by men. Excellent bad answer. Be very careful. Sometimes with these passages in history, when they talk about women's rights, you want to go overboard, or maybe they talk about civil rights, and you want to think very black and white. You want to think, they think that, women are horrible and terrible, and that's what Talleyrand believes, and then we go all the way over to the other side, which is what Wollstonecraft says about women deserve equal rights and all this kind of stuff. This is insane. And notice how neither of those are true. And this is the thing that we have to come to grips with some of these passages, that we need to read what the words, what do the words say? What did the person say? And not fill in what we think they said. If we just understand the words that these people said and we understand their positions and exactly what they believe at that moment, that's going to allow us to avoid these sensational answers like B is. Because you might say, yeah, Talleyrand, he doesn't even respect women, and he thinks that they probably yield less value for society than do the roles performed by men. Does he ever say that? Does he ever say that the job of women is less important? He never says that. You might infer it and you might imply it, but based on what you think he believes, or based on what you think, what kind of person he is. But does he ever say anything about that? No. He doesn't infer anything of that sort based on the words that he says, based on the text that he decided to publish. So this is a really good bad answer because it seems reasonable, and yet it's not supported by the text because he never once says it. Just because you think that's what he might say or you might infer based on your assumptions about this person does not make it so. Does not make it inferable based on the text that was written and only the text. So really good bad answer, but again, does he ever say that it's less valuable? No. Watch out for those extremes. Watch out for filling in things that you think ought to be so that it fits in with a worldview and a mindset that you think is reasonable. But again, the only mindset and worldview that we care about are these authors and what they said. What about C? It can be inferred that by the author of passage 1 that he believes running a household and raising children entail very few activities that are difficult or unpleasant. Maybe. Because what does he say, if I remember this correctly? He says that it's like mothers have delicate constitutions, they're peaceful, that they have duties of motherhood that set them apart from strenuous habits and onerous duties. So he's saying like the physical construction and the constitution of what makes up women, that prevents them from doing like breaking rocks or like building a railroad. The strenuous and onerous duties, and summon them to gentle occupation and the cares of the home. That's what it's about. The gentle occupations and the cares of the home. In other words, he's saying they are not doing things that are strenuous and onerous or burdensome. And what are they doing instead? Gentle occupations and caring for the home. So it can be inferred, if he says that women are not doing strenuous jobs, and then we say that women are in the house and take care of kids, we can infer, or it can be implied, that running a house and raising children entail or encompass very few activities that are difficult or unpleasant. We said in the previous sentence that women don't do things that are strenuous or onerous. And then we say that they run a household and raise children. We can infer then that those activities are not difficult or unpleasant. There are very few. They do very few things that are difficult or unpleasant. I like C. I like the logic of C. I like how it nicely fits in. It dovetails in with the way that we think about this question. As well as that quote that I remember. Again, the only reason I'm saying, I know it's kind of maybe, I'm leading you on because, that's going to be the answer for the next question. But it's like that's just where I remember him talking about the duties of motherhood and the roles in the house and all that kind of stuff. So what about D? It can be inferred that running a household and raising children requires skills similar to those needed to run a country or business. Maybe that's true. However, does Talleyrand ever say that? Does he ever say that the skills required to run a household are very similar to running a country or a business? No. He doesn't say that. Because he doesn't say that, that's not going to be right. I think the answer for 32 is going to be C. But just to be sure, let's lock it up with the quote for 33. Question number 33 on the reading portion of College Board's Test 3. Which choice provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question? So the previous question was asking, it can be inferred, right? Or like based on what he said, what's the next logical jump that we can make? That the author of passage 1 believes that running a household and raising children, and we think entail very few activities that are difficult or unpleasant with C. Because if we remember where he talks about the duties of motherhood and the jobs of the house, line 25, 27, he says, women's delicate constitutions, their peaceful inclinations, the many duties of motherhood set them apart from strenuous habits and onerous duties. Like the fact that they are delicate and sensitive and peaceful leads them not to do strenuous and difficult things. And then the next clause says, and summons them to gentle occupations and cares of the home. So if he's saying women don't do difficult or strenuous things, and then the next part of the sentence he says, women work in the house and take care of kids, what can we infer? We can infer that running a household and raising children entail very few activities that are difficult or unpleasant, or C. But let's pretend like we don't know any of the answers for 32. Let's pretend like they don't exist. We have to answer a very particular question, and that question is, what does the author of passage 1 believe about running a household and raising children? We need to find a quote that describes what the author of passage 1 thinks about raising children and running a household. So let's read 4 to 6. Does this talk about raising a house or raising children or running a household? They are property owners yet have no direct influence or representation. That's not talking about women being running households. That's talking about them having property, right? Them being able to own land and such and inherit things, yet they don't have representation as to what the future of that land might bring. So that has nothing to do about running a household and raising children as much as being able to just inheritance and the general things of what don't make sense in French society, which is the beginning of this treatise. This is the beginning. He's bringing up all these points of saying, like, yeah, this doesn't make any sense, does it? And he's talking about all the things that don't make sense about what women can't do versus what they ought to. So that might be a good bad answer because it's talking kind of about like property, and you might think, oh, that has to do with the house, but don't fall down that rabbit hole of logic. Let's leave A for now, even though again realize why I don't like it. What about B, 13 to 17? Does this talk about running a household and raising children? If the exclusion from public employment decreed against women leads to a greater sum of mutual happiness for the two sexes, then this becomes a law that all societies have been compelled to acknowledge and sanction. That's not saying anything about what the author of passage 1 believes about running a house and raising children for women are. No. What about C, 25 to 30? Does 25 to 30 talk about what he thinks about women running, or rather something about running a household and raising children? It is not apparent that their delicate constitutions, their peaceful inclinations, and the many duties of motherhood set them apart from strenuous habits and onerous duties and summon them to gentle occupations and the cares of the home. That literally talks about raising children and taking care of a home, verbatim. So I like on how this quote C talks about running a household and raising children. It's the only quote so far that directly talks about that, which is why I really, really like C. Not to mention that it matches up nicely with answer choice C for 32. That running a house and raising children entail very few activities that are difficult or unpleasant, because it said that. But besides that, I like C because it directly talks about the things that matter. running a household, raising children. Sometimes you have to be laser focused with these quote questions. You just need to answer the question that's being asked and move on. No philosophizing, no, what you think or how you feel. What is true? What about D, 30 to 35? Does it talk about raising children or running a household? And is it not evident that the great conserving principles of society, which make the division of powers a source of harmony, has been expressed and revealed by nature itself when it divided the functions of the two sexes in so obviously distinct a manner? Does that talk about running a household or raising children? No. It's talking about, he's saying, well, isn't it obvious that this is how nature intended it to be? This is how the power was bifurcated, and this is just the way that we live in harmony. I like how C directly talks about running a household and raising children. And how does that match up with answer for 32 when we think it's C? Talleyrand thinks that running a household and raising children is not that bad. It doesn't entail difficult or unpleasant things. Because he says the way that women are, exclude them, set them apart from strenuous and difficult tasks. And instead, what do? They summon them to the gentle occupations and the cares of the home. The things that women do are not as bad as the things that they could do. I guess the strenuous and onerous duties, maybe running a government, running a business, breaking rocks, I don't know. So, tough question. The inference question was tough, but realize and read between the lines. It's not that bad of reading between the lines. It's not like this insane thing that we need to chain together to come up with the answer. It's just saying women don't do hard things. Therefore, it can be concluded that the stuff that they do is not hard. The answer to 32 is going to be C. The answer to 33 is also going to be C.